Hello everyone, I'm Mr. Furlong, and today we're going to be talking about the male reproductive system. As we get started here on chapter 19, dealing with the reproductive systems, we're going to look at the male reproductive system in one video, and then in another we will take a look at the female reproductive system. So starting off with the male, the main function is to produce and to maintain sperm cells. The sperm cells, or the gametes, are the cells that will transmit the genetic information from parent to offspring. Here are the major organs of the male reproductive system. Take a few minutes, pause the video, and you're simply going to label the highlighted structures on your diagram. We're going to take a look at some of these major structures and what their function is. Now, the testes, of course, is the primary sex organ, and this is where the sperm will be made. This contains seminiferous tubules. So in the testes, we have these very small tubules that are tightly packed together. Each tubule is about 70 centimeters in length, but there's numerous seminiferous tubules. In fact, if we were to stretch out all the seminiferous tubules end to end, it would be longer than a football field. And again, the main function of these seminiferous tubules is this is the place where the sperm cells are being made. The testes also contain interstitial cells. Now, these are the cells that are outside the seminiferous tubules that will produce the male hormones. In particular, we'll talk about testosterone. What you're looking at here is a cross-section of the testes. Each of these large round structures that you see, that's the seminiferous tubule, and we're going to label these things. These cells that we see on the outside, these will eventually become sperm cells. Those are called spermatogonium cells. Here we see the sperm cells and the tails of those sperm cells. These cells outside the seminiferous tubules, those are the interstitial cells, and they are producing the testosterone. The testes are the main organs. Let's take a look at some of the internal accessory organs, and then we'll look at those external ones. Starting with the epididymis. So the epididymis is this small structure just on top of the testes. After the sperm cells have been made, they're not quite fully mature yet. So they're going to finish their maturation process in the epididymis. At some point, the sperm cells are going to leave the epididymis and travel through the Vas Deferens. So the Vas Deferens is simply a tube, and there's two of them, one for each testes, that transports the sperm from the epididymis to the urethra. And so, for instance, here we can see the Vas Deferens. In the case of a vasectomy, the doctor would simply go in, cut the tube, and then sear it off on the ends, so that when sperm will be produced, it'll get to the point where it's blocked and it can't go out any further. And so the semen would not have the sperm in it. The next structure is the seminal vesicle, so right next to the prostate gland. And this contains a fluid that's going to be added to the sperm that is high in fructose. So fructose is a type of sugar, and that is going to be the energy source for the sperm cells. They're going to use up a lot of energy. If the sperm cells are deposited into the female, they can stay alive for upwards of 3 days. And during that time, they're going to need that sugar as their source of energy. The next structure, this large structure here, is the prostate gland. The prostate gland also produces a fluid. The job of the prostate gland's fluid is to increase the pH. So the sperm like to have a pH just slightly above 7. The problem is, in the woman's body, the pH is slightly acidic, and that can quickly kill many sperm. This is also, over time, the gland that can enlarge. Roughly 1 out of every 3 men tend to have a prostate problem. And so if you start noticing issues with urinating, it could potentially be a prostate issue. The last internal organ is this small structure right here called the Bulbourethral gland, otherwise known as the Cowper's gland. And this also secretes a fluid. That fluid will be released prior to ejaculation, and that acts as a lubricant for the penis. During an ejaculation, the fluid that is released, what we might commonly refer to as semen, the technical term is the seminal fluid, contains the sperm cells as well as all the other secretions from the glands. So there's going to be some from the prostate gland, some from the seminal vesicle. Again, in a case where a man has a vasectomy, he will still produce the fluids. There will just no longer be sperm in it. The pH, again, just slightly above 7, about 7.5. In a typical ejaculation, there's about 2 to 6 milliliters of semen that is released. On average, about 120 million sperm cells are in 1 milliliter. So even on the small end, at the 2 milliliters, you're talking about 240 million sperm cells. And at the other end, you're looking at over 1 billion sperm cells that can be released. And remember, it only takes one. All right, so now for some of the external reproductive organs. So the first one is the scrotum. The scrotum simply is a place that houses the testes. In order for sperm to be produced properly, they need to be at a temperature slightly below body temperature. So this is why the testes are found outside of the body. And then the penis, which is composed up of 3 different columns of erectile tissue. And so these tissues can fill with blood, which is then what causes the erection. At the end of the penis is the prepuce or the foreskin. Now, this can be removed at birth. This is what is a circumcision, where the doctor, or if you're Jewish, the rabbi, would remove, usually within the first 24 to 48 hours. So let's take a look at how the reproduction system is controlled through the process of hormones. And we're going to be making a flow chart with this. And this is all beginning in the hypothalamus. So the hypothalamus, remember, is in part of the brain. And it is going to produce a hormone called gonadotropin releasing hormone, or GnRH. RH meaning releasing hormone, GN gonadotropin. And this is going to go to the pituitary. Remember, pituitary is just at the base of the brain, so it's not going very far. When the pituitary gland receives gonadotropin releasing hormone, it is going to produce 2 hormones. FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, and LH, luteinizing hormone. Now, both of these are going to end up going to the testes. So they get into the bloodstream, make their way to the testes. 2 things are going to happen because of this. The LH is going to start the production of male hormones. So this is going to cause the production of testosterone primarily. FSH causes sperm to be produced. Now this whole process isn't going to begin until puberty. So prior to puberty, these hormones aren't present. This will continue pretty much until the man dies. Men can continue to produce sperm their whole life. Now it is possible that at some point this process stops and sperm production ceases as well. But certainly men have been known to have children well into their 70s. So let's take a look at some of these sex hormones. All the male hormones that are produced are called androgens, and we call these male hormones when we are talking about all these different types of hormones. Males and females all produce these same hormones. It's just in different amounts. Because men produce greater amounts of testosterone than women do, we simply call these male sex hormones and female. It's just that our bodies produce different amounts of these hormones. Right, so the male hormones, however, though, are called the androgens. We're only going to take a look at one, and that is testosterone. Testosterone does several things. First of all, the production of testosterone increases dramatically at puberty, and so this is going to cause some changes in the male bodies, and it will stay high until the early 20s. Eventually, it starts to very slowly taper off as the man gets older and older. What testosterone will do, at puberty we see increased body hair growth, and the pitch of the voice decreases as well. Higher levels of testosterone allows for faster muscle growth. So this is the main reason why men typically have larger muscles than females, is because of the higher levels of testosterone allows for that to happen. Because of the greater muscle growth, it also causes male bones to become thicker and stronger. And so again, typically men don't have the osteoporosis issue that women do because of the high levels of testosterone. So that's it for the male reproductive system. In the next video, we'll take a look at the female reproductive system.